Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 2 of the wallPen podcast, the art and business of wall printing. I am your host, James, and as always, I have Marc and Mark, the founders of wallPen North America, with us to answer questions regarding the business. So let's dig into that.
Hold on one second, James, before we go. Next time you introduce this, could you put my name first? Zing!
Marc and Mark.
There it is. Thank you. Yeah, it's a hard K.
But yeah, last episode we talked about, the origin story of like how you guys started this. And it was like just, I don't know, there's lots of information inside of there. It was really informative. And this week we're going to dig in more into actually operating a wallpen business and what it takes and some of the things and the most frequently asked questions that people may have about operating their own wallpen business. So yeah, let's just dig straight into it. And I'm going to sort of play the role of that person starting off. And the first question that I would have is like, what does day one look like once I have the printer? Like, how does this all start for me? Like, what do I do? Like, what's day one look like?
Yeah, day one is definitely a great question. It's when you want to make sure you're ready, obviously, because the clock starts ticking on your ROI at that point. So there's a lot of work you can do ahead of time, of course, leading up to a machine arriving in your space. We have a comprehensive video library for training. The training itself is maybe a half day to a day of work. After that, the main thing you want to be doing is just printing. We figure about a month of printing and you're going to be pretty much equipped to handle most of, 95% of what you see out there in terms of the printing. But yeah, day one is bust open that package, get the machine out, and assemble it, turn it on, connect it, and basically start your calibration process. I'll sort of pass over to Mark on some of the steps of that, but pretty straightforward things from a business standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing there, and this is something, if you're hitting day one, you would have already have spoken to us. And the thing that we encourage most is before your printer arrives, we're going to give you the tools and assets you need to go out and start selling the service. Start building out a market, start building out a customer base, find interested parties and lock down contracts if you can, so that you know that you have something to execute on as soon as you have the machine in your hands. It's a great way to start the business. It's a great way to get rolling, and you don't need a machine to do it. As soon as the machine arrives, you're going to unpack it, you're going to run through our training program, and you're going to have Mark and I and any of our technical support team available to you via WhatsApp, email, phone call to kind of guide you through that process as needed. Our videos are incredibly comprehensive. Our customers have been loving the fact that they can unpack, build, and get their machine operating at their own pace. And then it's go out and print, whether you're printing at your house, in your kids' rooms, in-laws, whatever. You just want to go and be putting ink on the wall at any chance you can get, run through all the nuances of operation side of things, tie us into it as well. Part of what we do is really help guide you and hopefully fast track a lot of the questions that you would have if you've never printed on a wall before, and tap into our knowledge base and get going. You'll find that it is actually quite easy to start printing. The machine and the technical aspect of operating the equipment is not a burden that needs to be of concern.
Yeah, from a business standpoint, you touched on it, Mark, but I would say like day one, you want to be like, try talking to your network and see if amongst your family and friends, if there's an easy opportunity for you. Just get used to packing the machine up in your car, bringing it to a site, setting it up on site, having that feeling of like people watching you about to hit go. There's definitely a feeling when you hit go on a print. It does have an element of like, there's performance, there's an execution. Just get used to it. Do whatever you can where like there's an understanding from the people that you're doing it for that, you're figuring this out. You of course you'll make it work, but like that gives you just kind of a warm up. It's like preseason basically, right? Yeah. You get a chance to kind of work your way through it, see how things are working for you, getting your own little rhythm, and going from there.
I love it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, I love that idea of like just starting with like your home base. Like, just start with relatives. Like if maybe someone might have like a newborn, you can print something onto their wall or something just to
Absolutely. Everybody, as soon as you show them what it is, like people, I promise you'll be able to come up with a free print somewhere. You know, that's all you're doing is just offering, you give someone a chance. I guarantee somebody will come up with something. I mean, it's like you could look at just in my space here. If I just printed for my wife, right? It's obviously, I'd have plenty of opportunity there to try it out a few times. I don't think I would meet her expectations. So I would assume that it's going to be a failure, but it's definitely a possibility. Yep.
And then I guess like going beyond that. So like, okay, I start with my friends and family. They may post it on like Instagram. They'll share it with their friends. Other people start to see it. Like, is it a matter of just going to like local businesses in my area and like, no, like for instance, I go to a local coffee shop and I have noticed that there is a bare brick wall in their coffee shop. Is it as easy as just like going into that place and just, pitching the idea?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. I always tell any of our potential prospects that if you've ever tried to sell anything in your life, be it insurance or you've ever had to be on the slog of like trying to cold call or trying to like just get in there and sell something, like selling murals, high definition, vivid color murals done by a robot is very similar to what I imagine selling puppies would be like. It's like people are excited to have you kind of come in and talk about it, even if it's like not a perfect opportunity or you don't close on the spot. You're not going to have a bad time selling it. Right? Nobody's going to like try to throw you out of their building for trying to bring some life to a space. That's not, that's just not our experience. And I think that's probably like the main thing I would say in the first week or two of having the machine, or as Mark said, previous to it even arriving, like go in and get used to it. Cause like you're going to find as you go opportunity to opportunity, like you will gain momentum. It's really fun to like go and see what you can do out there. Let me just take a step back here. What I tell people all the time of like, there's really two categories of customers that you're going to be going on today. It's a nice even split. There's your one-off prints, like coffee shop's a great example, brewery, things where like, they're going to love the print. You're going to love doing the print, but like you can reasonably expect that unless they're opening up a new location or want to change things up. They're like, probably like that's the total of what you'll do as far as printing wise. You may do other things marketing wise and whatnot, but like as far as print wise, those are great. Those are the ones that like, yes, my advice is get up, physically go to a space, look at a wall, talk to somebody who's there who may be a decision maker or can put in front of a decision maker, and give them a really simple, digestible pitch and price of like what would it take to get a wall print there. I think a lot of our operators, and honestly anybody, if you haven't done this a lot, that like you tend to get too convoluted. Something that comes up quite frequently is like, what do you guys do for contracts? If you go into a brewery and you're printing and like they don't like it or they don't pay you, it's like, I don't know, man. I guess I do the print and I leave. Like think about it. What am I realistically going to take them to court over? Like $1,000? Like what are we arguing about here? So what I have found is like you want to shorten this gap between I can print something. Okay, what is it and how much does it cost? That's what you're trying to deliver short bullet points to them that it's easy for them to remember, easy for them to understand, so that at the end of the day, it's like, why wouldn't I do this? If I walk in, I would not quote somebody a per square foot cost. Although if you look into our literature, that's how we quote it, and I'll touch on why that is later. I would quote it as a flat rate, and I would include any piece of artwork that will help you create, right? And any size you want. At the end of the day, an extra hour on site is not going to sink your ship, but making everybody look at this and say anything I want, anywhere I want, any size I want, and you'll do it. The answer is yes. And it's $2,000. Yes. That's an easy thing for people to decide if they want or not. If I start telling you it's on average between $18 to $22 a square foot, I want you to think about it like this, and just make it easy, make it simple. They sell the magic, as we say. Like, just let it be an easy, simple, digestible thing, and eat the delta between the two of them. More likely than not, you'll do better on a flat rate than you would on a quote of like a per square foot cost.
Yeah. To add to that as well, there's going to be a strategy from the operator's perspective as well to hit the low-hanging fruit. It's very easy, and we found ourselves in this situation in early days as well. If somebody's saying yes, you're going to find a way to make it work. But in some of those early jobs, there's enough business out there where you can pick the big, wide open, white wall where there is no scaffolding requirement. There is no, things that you need to pull off the wall. There isn't a whole lot of pre-work. There's enough big, wide open spaces. And like, that's really what you want to be targeting, especially early days, because it is easy. They are out there, and you're not going to be running up against challenges that you haven't faced before.
Right.
And I think another important thing to consider is you don't really need in your first 10 jobs to worry about leaving money on the table. So if you can show up in print and make $1,000 a day, $1,000 in your pocket, right? Like let's say for, I don't know, even in a pretty extremely big convoluted job, you're talking about maybe 4 or 5 hours on site. If you're walking away with $1,000 where you clocked in at like around $200 an hour, you're going to feel pretty good.
It's a
That
good.
you could have done more, could have done better, fine. But like run the numbers, run the basic baseline for yourself on a month of what $1,000 a day is going to do to your bottom line. So you have enough margin there that you don't need to concern yourself by like people like how do you price in ink? I literally don't. I don't. It's under $1 a square foot. I'm charging way more than that. I'm sure I should probably factor in the fact that I bought myself a sandwich when I was on site. I don't. You know what I mean? It's like it's just part of you roll it into this cost. If you figure it's about $100 in expenses, you're covering almost everything that we've ever printed. You'd have to go to a pretty extreme case where that wouldn't cover it. So yeah, the key is keep it simple. That's what that KISS, like keep it simple, stupid. That really applies here. What people are going to buy is like, it's incredible what you're offering. Don't get in the way of that by trying to make it too detailed, right? You want to be like, this speaks for itself pretty quickly. 5 or 6 bullet points should be enough to do what you want, and then kind of move on from there. Like Mark said, if it's not a sweet spot, if it's any more complicated than that, fine. It's that's good pipeline stuff. But like, go after the ones that are like, this is a great wall. They already know what artwork they want. They're happy with the price. Let's go knock those ones out and keep going. Keep pushing on volume until you feel like, okay, I've got enough things rolling here. Now I'm going to focus on, if you remember, I said there's 2 different styles of printing. The other half of that coin is relationship-based printing. Right. And relationship-based printing are significantly larger contracts, but usually take a lot longer to develop. Those are ones where by having a relationship with someone, you become their preferred partner for doing graphics. So great example, architects and designers. It's one that we are always telling people, go present this. They're going to be looking at jobs. They're going to need printing done. Oh, you know what? Marc and Mark, they have this really cool tech. I love their pitch. Let's see what and then if it works and goes well, then guess what? When every time they need something done, they're feeding you that business. And that's sort of the 12-month plan that you want to be on, is you want by a year into this, you want your relationships to start blooming, becoming fruitful, where you're getting these much bigger contracts. These are more like $10,000 to $100,000 contracts. They'll take 18 months to close, but those are the ones that will start initiating. So when you look at like, what's the growth opportunity for the business, and you look at how you can potentially do it, like all this one-of stuff will always work well. If you're just posting on social media, people will naturally find you and want one-ofs done. That's great business. You will do very well that way. 10,000 plus per month, like pretty easily as a part-time side gig. That shouldn't be too hard to do within 6 to 18 months, depending on how your marketing goes. The longer range things, that's when you start looking at like 6-figure contracts, multiple machines. You're running an enterprise level business at that point, and there's any number of ways and directions you can take that. It really, a lot of it depends on the contracts you're getting, and we could go into more detail about what that stuff looks like, but that's still early days for this technology.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, like the one-off prints, sort of like the coffee shop sort of things, because they're gonna print that onto the wall. It will be up there for like months on end. They will most likely not want to change it up too often, or if at all, for any point in time. But yeah, I love that idea of like building those relationships with like designers or people who do like renovations on homes, and they like to have sort of like this pinnacle place inside of these homes where they might have like one of the prints on the wall, and you can always generate that because they're constantly doing those things.
Yeah,
it's awesome. And I guess then, in terms of pricing, you're saying that it should keep it as simple as possible. But like, what happens like when someone wants like a specific quote or anything? Like how typically do you quote for something like a small mural? And I'll just go back to the example of a coffee shop. Like, how do you price something like that? Is it really just you?
Yeah, the show up and print fee, and Mark, I'll turn this over to you because I'm kind of talking over you a little bit here, but yeah, the show up and print fee is $500 no matter what. Just because like that's our mobilization fee. It seems fair relative to what we're doing. Of like the whole, the bulk of our work is set up, obviously, so that covers that. With that in mind, I would say it mostly comes down to a degree of complexity. Is there any other element to this thing that's going to be not just us printing on the wall, like right down to like, is parking hard to come by? Because you do kind of have to load your machine and unload your machine. Trying to do that in the middle of downtown rush hour little bit different than they have a dedicated parking spot, right? That's right by where we're printing and all that good stuff. But Mark, you've been on site a lot. What are some of the other considerations you do?
Yeah, I mean, I found for myself at least, your price does adjust as your business develops as well, right? A job that'll take you a bit more work early days, you're willing to put in the extra effort for a lower price because getting ink on the wall is objective number one. But as you start to get busy and you have more clients, you adjust your cost based on the complexity. Our guiding principle internally, and this is just numbers for ourselves, are anywhere between kind of $18 to $22 a square foot. Now, like Mark said, we generally try not to quote our end user a square foot price and more of a project-based price because it's easier to digest. There's less nuance to consider when going from seeing a number to saying yes. That being said, as you start getting into that tier 2 type customer, the larger firms who don't quite have a project for you out of the gate, but are going to plug you in down the line, then giving them a guideline on a square footage allows them to make the necessary decisions to input you into the project. So that's kind of what we look at when we price. But there's anything from 3 flights or 4 flights of stairs without an elevator, that will add to your day. It is, and like I can tell you, it's like it's not difficult. You're just moving, but like if it's 30 degrees outside, you're just going to want to price it. The pricing at that point, the customers are willing to pay it. It makes you feel good about doing the work. And if you feel good about doing the work and getting paid at the end of the day, you're going to be doing it more, right? You want to be enjoying yourself. This is your business. Yeah. So it's, that's a consideration. If there's staging requirements, and then we can really split this off into other revenue streams as well. We've decided to get into offering painting, right? This is a revenue stream that is incredibly low skill, really low overhead because the equipment is low cost, but is a requirement on some jobs because it's in an older building, the walls are dinged up, or they want a fresh coat before they apply this, beautiful mural that they're going to be putting on. We offer that service as well. Now you're making anywhere from, $350 to $650 for a couple of hours worth of work. That's low risk, low cost. So for us, it makes sense. It then keeps it simple for our customers. They don't have to go and seek out a painting contractor. It's just an all-in service, and it doesn't add to your bottom line. And if you want to farm that out, you can absolutely farm that out yourself. But, for us right now, that's something that we offer and is easy enough to execute on.
That's a great point. Every opportunity we have to upsell, every opportunity we have to add value to the customer, right? Who doesn't love a fresh coat of paint? Honestly, like it does, that alone will brighten up the space, right? So being able to offer that, generate a little bit more revenue, plus you're reducing the barrier between, any challenge a customer may have before they hit go on your print. Anything you can do to help and make a bit of money is just going to add to your margin. It's just going to and gives you, the opportunity to pick the paint, have the paint on hand. There's a lot of other benefits that come with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love this idea. Like, it seems like this is very much like a keep it simple type of business. Like, why add complexity to something when you don't have to? Like, just keep it simple and like you be the one-stop shop for having to like repaint the wall. Like, just add that service in. And then in thinking about that, like, what other services have you guys sort of added on to like beyond just like the printing service? So you have like the printing service, the vertical printing onto walls. Then you can add on sort of like, freshening up with a fresh coat of paint. Like, are there other things too that are available?
Definitely. Yeah. For us, and this is mostly just how we decided to run our business. I think there's a lot of reasons why we do it this way, but our answer is like, we basically try not to say no. We try to either say yes and have an alternative answer, or we say yes and price it that reflects our desire to do it. Right? It's a great idea. Don't say no to somebody. Just be like, that's going to cost you $10,000. Right? So yes, it's possible, but like there's an extraordinary fee for me to get on a helicopter, go to the outside of your building and paint the lettering. Like, I'm going to charge for that. You know what I mean? Like that kind of idea. And as well, and I'm sure we're going to touch on this later in this episode, because it is a fascinating technology in the sense that I think it's been not branded correctly by quite a few of our competitors out there as wall printing. We specifically, while we do call it wall printing, of course, it actually is much a stronger place to put yourself in an understanding if you call it vertical printing. Yeah. So it's much more like everything a flatbed UV printer can do, just done with no overhead. You don't need a sign shop. You don't need brick and mortar to accomplish the print. So another good example is we've printed signs before, right? Why wouldn't we? It doesn't have to go on the wall, right? Somebody wanted it done on a nice piece. Shout out to our friend Rob, who I know you know, James, like wanted a piece of Baltic birch plywood printed with like world famous Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Which is a topic of discussion in his office every time you walk in there, which like, if you know Rob, is great, right? It's a really striking piece, right? Are we going to say turn him down because no, we're wall printers? Like, that's not what we do, right? Doesn't make any sense. So having the ability to pivot and understand like the technology actually has a lot of opportunity to take people's idea of what they want their space to look like and bring it to life. You know what I mean? And you are much more than just a wall printer, right? You're a wallpen operator. You know, you're the special forces of this industry. But it's true. As soon as you're prepared to go on site, all of a sudden you're able to do things and price things and accommodate things that I would argue pretty much everybody else in the industry more or less won't be bothered with, because that's not the way that their business model is set up, right? They want high volume. They want to keep everything on a production schedule. All that stuff that we've commented on as a reason why wall printing, mobile printing has advantages over its counterpart, vinyl and other traditional media. You have the opportunity to get creative. There's lots of ways of solving things, right? And not to drag this on, but one of the things that architects and designers are going to, at least we have found, add value to what we're doing is the idea that we're a one-stop shop. We're always willing to look at your problem. We're always willing to look at your scenario and say, well, let's think about how we might be able to do that. You want this thing here, like that might be a little tricky this way, but like, what would work is this over here, right? And you think about it, it's like you're offering a lot more than just, I know how to run a wall printer and I have said, capital asset in my thing. You're saying, I'm the kind of person who takes a robot printer on as an early adopter. Like, I'm willing to look at all of your problems and see if we can't find a solution. And that's something that I think Concept Inc. has done very, very well with, is not trying to box ourselves in to one idea, to try to stay much more on the agnostic side of like, we're not really privy to anything. We're really looking at what you're trying to accomplish and how we might do that the best. The wall pen is a tool that's incredibly versatile, but it's a tool within that quiver of opportunity.
I think that principle rings true across almost any business, but is certainly one that we've found a lot of success with, and that is the willingness to work with the customer to find a solution is almost far more valuable than the actual raw wall printing itself. We have the relationships that we've developed that have proven to be the most fruitful are the ones who call us with the problem for our expertise in finding a solution. It's not always we know we want a wall print and we're going to call you. It's, I have this wall. What's the best way to go about this? And we've done everything from solving that using the wallPen. That's obviously the best option for margin in your business, but to keep the customer satisfied and to build that relationship and strengthen that relationship, we've gone as far as partnering with muralists to apply hand-painted murals in places that we may not be able to get the printer, to traditional graphics, to hand lettering. There's a slew of opportunities and options out there. You become the de facto point of contact for some of these customers because of your willingness to work with them. The example with Rob and the print on plywood was only because we were willing to work with him. That's how we got that business, and has proven to be remarkably fruitful all the way up into meeting you, James. That relationship, though, has really been great. And it all started with, and he's explicitly said this, the reason why I hired you guys was because you stayed on the phone with me and had the conversation about what I was looking to get done. And I can't stress that enough. It is a lot more enjoyable to work with somebody who's helping you think through a problem than it is for somebody to be like, nope, we don't do it. And that's the end of it.
I love that. It's so true. Like, yeah, this whole idea of keep it simple, guiding people through the process, like it's all there. And like, yeah, it totally makes sense. I'm just thinking like a mind shift of, instead of this being a wall printer, it's a vertical printer. So like, is it just wall? Like, what else can you print on? Like, what are some other things that people can do instead of just, thinking inside of a box of, oh, there's a coffee shop or there's a wall? Like, what else is it that this robot can do?
It's a great question, James. Honestly, like you should consider a career in podcast hosting because that was a fantastic question. Okay, so we had to invent a little tool we call the ultimate easel. Because we had gotten this, I'm going to call it a random application because I have no good reason except that once we did it once, it like spoke for itself, which is doors, specifically doors into classrooms. So we were at a vocational high school and we printed, each classroom had its like industry focus. So carpentry, multimedia, culinary. And what they wanted was as you're walking into a classroom, like graphics on those doors. Like little side note, this printing directly onto your substrate. It's such a thin level of ink. It's so thin and so it's considered immaterial. So you traditionally cannot put things on fire doors, these steel doors, because it adds to the fire rating. It makes it burn easier. Ours is the only, as far as we know, the only way of getting graphics onto that, short of hand painting, that is fire rated is considered that. So, anyways, there's a lot of reasons why we ended up doing this, but not only that, it did end up being this like you sort of like that's kind of interesting. Like when you see it, you're like, oh my god, this is like wow, this is spectacular. We should do this in every classroom, which is slowly we're working our way through the through the school board up there in Toronto. But we had to find a way. What we do is we go on site with it, but we do take the doors off of the hinges and print it as a rectangle and then rehang them. We needed something that we could grab, like something that would hold the part in place, nice flat square with laser references for us to be able to use the printer effectively. So we created this thing, and in the process of developing it, we realized like there is no reason why you couldn't grab canvases, cabinets, dresser drawers, like you name it, you could put it in this ultimate easel and use the printer to print. So it's like, yeah, table saws are one way of cutting wood, but a panel saw does the same thing, but it saves you a ton of space in your shop. The wallPen is absolutely 100% capable of doing everything that a flatbed printer can do onto objects. So by having to do this door, we've created this idea that you could print traditional things, signs, and all that good stuff, which led us to this whole other business model that at the start, of course, we had never really considered, which I don't know, Mark, if you want to talk about the Etsy shop idea, but yeah, that's one of the avenues that we've explored.
Yeah, I mean, by solving one problem for a customer, which was they wanted a graphic, but their space was limited. So we decided on a door, had never printed on a door, and then solved that problem for them, and then have only advanced our solution to a point where now we can print on just about anything. It opened up a marketplace that we hadn't considered that now allows us to print on products that we can sell on Etsy, that we sell to our communities. They make good gifts. It's the part of our business that I wish I could spend more time exploring, because I think it's one of the most creative sides of this business, and creating tangible products is also just a general interest of mine. But through this easel, we're able to just do a slew of creative things, and we're really hoping to find other people who can take it and run with it.
Yeah, I love this idea of like not limiting yourself just to like walls. So like doors, you can start printing on like pieces of like birchwood, make signs. That thing that you guys made for Rob, the Justin Bieber poster, or not poster, but the big print. Like every time I go into his office and take a look at it, I always think that it's like a hand drawn painting, but it's actually was done by the vertical printer, which is awesome.
There's an interesting business case to it as well. All of that printing is that you're not mobilizing. So in between your larger projects, if you're able to drum up business that allows you to execute out of your garage, your shop, your basement, you're generating revenue without having to leave your house. So it might be less revenue, but your costs are certainly less. You can plug it in between your day. Actually, one of the biggest things that we've used it for is wedding signs. That's a whole industry in and of itself that is like untapped, and you can get rustic barnwood wedding signs or canvas signs and seating charts and really unique applications, because it has the ability to print on textured surfaces. You're really expanding the aesthetic of what you're printing on. That those textures don't need to be on a wall. They can be things like barnboard or pallet wood or any variety of things that you can make a sign out of. So now you're allowing a customer to get really creative in their wedding, which is, for anybody who's ever gotten married knows it's a great market to tap into.
Yeah.
The margins are fantastic and people are very much willing to pay for their vision. So that has been a huge application for us that has kind of just run in the background of everything else that we've been doing.
And it really stems from what we talked about, which is a willingness to look at things. That's just like there's something about the industry that we've experienced that just like being willing to look at it and say, let's try it. It sounds cool. Like one of the things I would like to do is mimic Gary Vee. I'd like to go to yard sales. I'd like to buy interesting objects that you wouldn't expect to find printed and print on them. It's just like why not? I would follow my own channel. That sounds kind of cool. Like if you take a dresser and I take it apart and I print on every surface of that dresser, what does that dresser look like? You know what I mean? I don't think you would ever find a print shop that's willing to look at something like that. You would never have access to the level of technology for a lot of reasons, but like it would just be very hard for them to accommodate that for any real. What are they going to charge you? They'd have to charge a lot of money to do R&D on that space. Whereas for us, it's like, man, I'd love to see it. Maybe it's really cool. And if it works, to Mark's point, wedding signs, every season you could be running a package that's a flat rate, so many prints, and it really won't change your bottom line very much. You can set that up to be a nice seasonal thing. Christmas would be another great opportunity, right?
I love that. Yeah, I have quite a few friends who are like photographers, and I noticed like a lot of the times what they'll do is they'll take photos of things and just send, like a print. But I guess is there a way to like take like these photos and then have them print inside of someone's garage? Like for instance, a lot of like automotive photographers will just send like a small, like little 8x11 print, but is it possible to take that photo from a camera and then translate it into a vertical print? Is it possible to do that?
That we're going to have to save for a more in-depth discussion, I think, James, as our podcast evolves here. There's a whole pillar of the business. We call it the 3 pillars. So you've got your technology. There's the obvious understanding of what a use case looks like for, what can the wall printer do? What does the wallPen accommodate? How does it work? There's the business side. So a lot of what we've been touching on here of like, what do your clients look like? How do you pitch that? How do you sell it? How do you package up what you're offering in a way that's digestible and good sale and all those things? The last one would be art, design. Like, what do you want and why? So you want this. I mean, one of my favorite stories of us is we were in a car dealership, and if you go looking through our stuff, you'll see it. It ended up being a Mercedes Gullwing. You kind of can't miss it because it's huge. But we started with a postcard size drawing. And we went, typically what we'll do is go looking for the high res version of it, try to get as high res as we can, scale it up in Photoshop and like, okay, what are we starting with? How bad is this? This was like, it was postage stamp is where we started. And we were blowing it up to like, what was it, Klauser? Maybe 15 feet, 12, 15 feet, something like that. So it was dropping in resolution. So what do? Right? What's your opportunity there to blow it up and still make it look good? And that's a whole segment that we'll have to do maybe next week of like, a discussion of like, what do you mean by this image? Do you mean the one-to-one? A photographer probably wants their photograph. All right, that's going to be very resolution dependent, very unforgiving when you break those rules. Scaling, yeah, you'll lose that past a certain threshold. If you're like, no, I just thought this was a really cool shot and I kind of just wanted it like on the wall, like, all right, now we can start getting creative with filters where the filter makes the resolution a lot less critical.
Right.
Hey, maybe what you meant was more of an impressionist view of this as opposed to a one-to-one view. There's all kinds of different things you can look at to modify that. But again, that will have to, there's a whole discussion of how we manage our artwork, which
all right,
I should call it design. Artwork's maybe a bit of, that's a bit more than what it is. It's probably more like design work is probably more what I mean. Yeah.
We'll get to that one in the next episode.
Yeah.
So I'm someone who's looking to start a vertical printing business, right? There's lots of, I've done some research on Google, like why wallPen? Like why should that be the starting point for me and not one of these alternatives that may be out there on the market?
Yeah, it's a great question. It comes up every conversation. If you've looked at this industry for 5 seconds, you'll notice that there's all kinds of machines available on Alibaba, right? There's all kinds of tech that's done. Taking horizontal printers, reorientating them vertically and printing on the wall is not what wallPen is. Okay, you can do that. There are a number of engineering reasons why it's not that simple. that like that will sort of work. You can certainly send me a video of that printer working, but that's not what we mean by the industry when we talk about vertical printing. Vertical printing had to be invented. It had to be re-engineered and invented. I'll give you a good example of what I mean by that. Every print technology up until really the wallPen, gravity, right, if this is the head, was working in your favor to the print. It was something that was working directly parallel to the print head's printing. All of a sudden, we've taken this and we've done this. Now, as I'm shooting my print, right, you got a little bit of a drop off. You've got gravity has to be factored into the math of doing that. We had to reformulate the ink. We had to reformulate the math and the logic of the print head itself, how it fires the droplets, when it fires the droplets, the harmonics. Like wallPen, the lab in wallPen has a drop analyzer. It's like a $25,000 piece of equipment that's a high-speed camera, and it's really fascinating stuff. If you get into the actual technology of it, we're talking like they actually fire 3 droplets of ink, 2 of which hit midair before it hits the wall. Like it's a science. To say you need to be an expert in this stuff to get that calibrated right is kind of like the same way a brain surgeon needs to be an expert, right? Like, I'm sure if I do enough Googling, I can cut into your head. That doesn't make me a brain surgeon, you know? And so when you look at the way that this machine was developed, this came from the ashes, almost literally the ashes, because the second printer that Andreas bought was one of these other models that caught fire in his lab. That's when he decided to make his own. That's when he's like, I'm just going to found wallPen, and I'm going to look at this and say, not what's the cheapest way to do this, not how can I take these parts and make a wall printer or make a vertical printer, but like if what I'm trying to do is show up, mobilize, print, and leave, how would I start that from square one? And if you look at what the E2 is, it really is the culmination of 4.5 years of research. Here's all the things we know about print technology. Here's the E1 was like grabbing parts off the shelf and trying to make them all play nice. The E2, what makes it so special is it's the first machine that was actually engineered for its purpose, right down to like the wheels that were used. The fact that you can put this thing together on site with one tool. That's it. 1 6mm wrench puts the entire thing together. Well, that's because we've been on site. We know you don't want to be digging around in your tool bag looking for parts or like, God, I forgot this thing. Like I always forget this. No, it's designed to be like, we're trying to minimize the amount of effort to get this thing mobilized for you. If you look at it, the only thing that's reliable enough to consistently print commercially is the wallPen. Everything else really isn't constructed in a way that's going to lead to success in your business for, again, a lot of technical reasons we could get into. But that the big macro discussion has to do with the fact that this was actually engineered for its purpose. Yeah, Mark, I don't know if you have any other comments on that, but
no, I mean, I think that covers it technically. Which I think technically there's definitely something to be said about what Andreas and wallPen have done to create an ecosystem for printing vertically.
Right.
The second side of that is you're not just buying a piece of technology; you are looking to start a business. When you're starting a business, I can promise you, you will not be able to go onto YouTube, I guess, up until this point when we host this podcast. You won't be able to go onto YouTube and say how to start a wall printing business. You won't be able to seek out answers to questions that you have because this is still a very new technology being leveraged in a business setting. We come with that experience. It is explicitly the thing that we didn't have, that we have spent so much time into developing so that we can help you start that business. We want to be able to fast track you. We want to be able to share the information that we're sharing here with you directly so that you can get started and become successful using this tech. You know, buying technology as a hobby is one thing. Buying technology to leverage as a business is an entirely different thing. And how you view that and implement that is absolutely critical to your success. And we want to be there to help you to reach that success.
Yeah, it's reliability, right? It's as you said, Mark. It's reliability not just in the technology itself, but in the people backing. Can I get an answer to this question? Can I get it in a reasonable time frame? If I'm met with an issue, is there somebody who's going to help me solve that? Right? You know, if you haven't run a wall printing business, which none of our competitors have, like they won't know the answer. Why would they? It's not something that you, like Mark said, you can't Google it. Like nobody's going to. Well, maybe now you can. You'll see this handsome face delighting you with waxing poetic about the wall printing business, but it's not something that is going to be necessarily easy to find, and it's not necessarily going to be something that's going to have an automatic, simple answer. You need some people that can help think this through logically with you, and that's what we're there to back.
I love that. You guys made mention of the ink and like the technology behind like the ink, and it's shooting out three separate like droplets to them, which hit midair, which is like absolutely incredible. So I'm an operator. Like, what about the ink? Like, how often do I need to change a cartridge? Is there a cartridge? Like, how does that sort of work as a business owner, and like the cost
Yeah,
and whatnot?
it's interesting as you start to explore commercial printing compared to what most people understand, which is retail printing, and that ink isn't really that expensive, and you don't use very much of it at all. We're talking like milliliters or ounces for those in the U.S. Per print. Like it's a milliliter per square foot printed. So if you're thinking 100 square feet, that's 10 feet by 10 feet. You're at 100 milliliters. That's like barely a shot. It's maybe an espresso cup of ink, like just nothing in terms of what's being laid on the wall. So your costs really reflect that in commercial printing. You're far less than $1 a square foot for the cost of ink. And because you're not using very much of it, you don't need to refill your system nearly as often as one would think. So we'll go 2, 3, 4 jobs, obviously size dependent, before we have to refill. It's not a cartridge-based system. It is a in-situ bag that gets refilled with bottles that we provide you. It's a very easy system. It's a very easy.
It takes 10 seconds. It's something that like you can pause your print and refill if you need to. We've never had to do that, right? I call this the curse of Hewlett Packard. Like everybody's so used to their desktop printer being like, you're low on ink, that like all they want to know when I talk to them is like, how fast can you get me ink? It's like, dude, if you are printing such a big print that you're worried mid-print, like trust me, that's your margins are going to cover overnight shipping. Like that's a lot more printing than you think, and it's like trying to get people out of that idea of like we're not going to be pinging you about low ink. We don't track how much ink is in the system any of the time. You just touch the bag and you get a feel for it. Do you need more? Don't you? If you do, you squeeze them in. It's really as simple as that. It's nowhere near what everybody thinks. Everybody thinks we're gonna take advantage of the fact that you need ink from us, that it's proprietary ink, because it is. Like that we're gonna jack up the price, and that's hey guys, that's the angle. You owe us a ton of money for ink. Very, very far from it. Like we're running a promotion right now that if you buy our business starter kit, which is the machine and all the accessories you need to run your business, we're offering 2 years of free ink, up to a set a month, to go with it. Specifically because we want you focused on out there printing, right? Like this shouldn't worry about the cost of a test ink or purge files. Like that I promise you that's negligible in your balance sheet. But just to make sure you understand how seriously we're taking that, like we'll happily comp you the ink to get you started in your business.
If you do the math on the amount of the volume of ink to what you can charge per square foot, we're talking like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue generated off of that free ink. The discrepancy between what you pay for ink to what you can charge for your services we're 95+% margin. Less than $1 a square foot for ink, $18+ a square foot for services. It's like the margins are there. We really want people focused on putting that ink on the wall. Keep printing.
That's a key there, James. I mean, that's something that I think is interesting to be in the early adopter space, which like clearly we are. You know what I mean? This is not like not something you're going to find at Kmart very soon. You know what I mean? It's like this is definitely a specialized piece of equipment. Kmart, a random reference, I gather. But you know what you're going to find is people that are like technology enthusiasts, which is great. We love that. That's fantastic. One of the biggest things that you need to understand is like you don't want to be focused on the technology. After you get it, you want to be focused on the application. It's the BlackBerry phenomenon, right? It really isn't the phone that gets the users. That's not what people want. People want the apps. That is just as true here. You are not going to job sites and selling that you have a wall printer, you have a vertical printer. You are going to a job site and you are selling what your wall printer can do. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably missed on most of our early adopter customers, where they have to get used to that idea of like, dude, I think it's cool. Obviously, I could geek out about this forever, right? Like, there's no shortage of the amount that I could talk about all the various fascinating things that come with this technology. It's very interesting. But ultimately, that's not what your business is going to be built on, right? Or rather, that's only one facet of your business. The key here is what can you do for your customer because you have this technology? And I think that's the thing that you want to make sure you're not messing with your technology on site. You don't want to have to run through new calibrations. You don't want issues on site with your tech. You want your tech show up, print, get paid, and leave. That's what you want. That's what it should be. If it does anything else, it's taking you away from the potential of what your business ought to be, right? And long term, like, it's an investment. You really want to think through, like, you don't want the best. Are you sure? Like, you sure you don't want this thing to work consistently and then have a team backing you to help? And like, you sure that's not how you want to go forward with your business? Like, those are some of the things that you sort of got to ask yourself of, like, what do you mean by ROI? Can you have an ROI on a printer that doesn't print? Our experience has been no. It's very hard to make any business decisions when your core technology doesn't work. We have not been able to solve that riddle when our printer was down early days or things were problematic for us. Like, not much you can really do. If that keystone piece doesn't happen, the rest of your business doesn't.
Yeah, it just falls apart.
And this is obviously, there's going to be a presumed bias because we are here representing wallPen, but I think it's important to share that, like, Mark and I have been exploring this technology for a long time. So much so that we flew to China and visited with manufacturers there to evaluate what the marketplace was like, to evaluate what the competition was like, to evaluate whether or not there was something there that was worth pursuing. And we came back and doubled down with wallPen. I mean, that was the conclusion of a very long trip with a whole lot of hours put in traveling to conclude that this is the right way to go about things.
Right?
There's a variable in our business that we strive for. It's our T to P, time to print. How long does it take you to get from a parking lot with the printer in the vehicle to on-site setup and printing? And if you're within an hour, like, you are cruising. That is a great timeline, and you're there and you're making money, and then your demobilization is 15 to 20 minutes. And every other option in the marketplace is going to lead to 2, 3, or 4 hours before you're actually doing the thing that's making you money. That's a huge gap. When time is money, like, you are bleeding it when you're on site and not able to get printing.
Yeah, and it's one of these things too that's really, like, it's so unfortunate. We've definitely gone through the ringer enough to say when it works so well for you. Like, it's mind blowing. People love it. We've never had a situation where people aren't talking to us about what we're up to, taking photos, sharing it. Word of mouth sales when you've done a print are incredible. So when it's working incredibly for you. And when it's not, like, it's really not working for you. You know what I mean? Like, you're sitting there fumbling, trying to explain why it's not working, explaining what, like, you can see it's like, it's really one or the other. It works. It's going to do great. It's going to continue and be an asset for you forever. If it doesn't, it's a boat anchor, and what a heavy hassle it is to drag that thing to and from. So that's when we looked at why we've invested what we have into wallPen, why we are such firm believers in this. It's really straightforward when it comes down to it. The key is the application, and there's only one printer on the market that is willing to guarantee that application.
That's awesome. And wallPen is what? Where are they made? Was it Germany?
German engineering, German construction. Yeah, service domestically.
Yeah, my love for the German automobiles is very high due to the technical aspects that they put into their vehicles and the precision that they use. I can only imagine, like, that same mentality is put into the wallPen.
Just pride, you know what I mean? German engineering is its own brand. And when you go over there and you look at what they've set up, how they've set it up, and why they've set it up, and, like, they're happy to host. So by all means, reach out to corporately. You can go take a look at what they're doing. It speaks for itself. That's one of my favorite Latin phrases, res ipsa loquitur. The thing speaks for itself. And you can see behind Mark there in the E2, it doesn't require much explanation. Like, you're just, well, that's not true. You're going to answer the same 10 questions every time you're on site. Like, yes, you're printing directly on the wall. Yes, it's this. No, it's this. But the idea that it's doing it and why it's beneficial, like, really in a lot of ways does speak for itself. And that's reflected in the design, the engineering, and then I would call it technological investment. This is just the start. This is the E2 is like the Apple II. It's just the start of what all the future plans have for wallPen and the industry.
That's awesome. And just like going back a little bit. So I buy a wallPen. It comes in separate bags. Can it fit in, like, a Mazda 3? Like, I have a small hatchback. Is it possible to fit inside of a smaller type car?
James, we shot that video where we fit into a Prius. This is a leading question. I don't appreciate that.
Ask these questions. Maybe I might have not.
The people want to know, man. People want to know.
I'm terrible. I should just
I'm a first-time business owner, and I have a small. I have a Mazda 3 hatchback. can I put it in there? Do I need a pickup truck? Like, how big is this wall pen? People want to know.
Yeah, they demand answers. Yeah, no, it definitely fits. Yeah, 100%. We typically say for ease of operation, like a hatchback or bigger is just for ease. But like I was just alluding to, we fit into a Prius. Haven't quite played Tetris down to a Miata or a Porsche or something. I can't say for sure.
Germany got it into a Mini or a Fiat 500.
No,
did they really?
way.
Yeah.
Yep.
I imagine if you got clever, like, yeah, you could pretty much do it on a motorcycle. If you got clever enough, little sidecar, you could probably make it work. But yeah, no, it's nothing extraordinary. That's why we say zero overhead. Like, you do not need to invest in a van. You don't need to invest in a truck. Like, those are handy. It's not like it's not better to have more space, but absolutely not necessary to function.
Got it. And then beyond just like the vertical printer itself, like the wall pen, like, is there like an app? Like how do I get the print that my customer has agreed upon? Like, how does that all work? Is like, what's the process there?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly straightforward. We do a lot of running through that in training, but you get your digital image onto your computer or Mac, you run it through the wallpen software to convert it from a digital image to a wallpen image, and then that gets transferred to a USB, and then everything else from there happens between you and the printer. You're communicating with the printer through a wireless tablet or any other wireless device, any tablet, any iPad, any laptop, and the machine is controlled from there. You set up and hit print. It's like it's very, very straightforward. Having some design background to manipulate the images is a nice to have, but not a requirement. We have systems and services to be able to support the image manipulation. But if you have a ready file, we're talking like under 5 minutes to get from your computer to ink on the wall.
James, is this one of those podcasts where I can point to the links below where we could like maybe point them and direct them? Because we could show you can take a look. If we don't, we definitely have the videos that show the basic process in this. Like right. What is it? Is it over here? Yeah, wherever it is.
Somewhere around.
We have some great supporting material that shows the overview of it, but like Mark said, it's very straightforward. There's nothing special about it. If you can handle a USB key, you'll be good.
That's awesome. Again, I'm sort of just hammering the nail on the head there, but it's like, it really is like one of those businesses where you're just keeping it simple. Like, that's pretty much the idea behind it. It's like not a lot of like overhead to run the business. In terms of like pricing for like customers, you're not trying to make it overly complicated by providing like square footage and this and that. Just like make it as easy as possible, and really to get these prints on the wall, like get them on doors, for your example, or even if you wanted to run like an Etsy shop, you can print it on pieces of wood, or for weddings or whatever the case may be. You're not limited to only printing this on walls. I guess go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say just on that, there's something that we ideated, and something that we share with our customers is that you're selling magic. At the end of the day, for most people who aren't in the weeds of this technology, when you show up and you print on their wall, as far as they're concerned, it's magic. And anything that you can do to uphold that idea of magic, the simplicity of setup, the simplicity of artwork, the simplicity of getting it onto the wall, just adds to the story of what you're providing, and really gives people something to hang on to and share with anybody else who's interested. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. More prints lead to more prints, because that magic is contagious. And it's something that we enjoy. And when it hits, when you pull the rabbit out of the hat, everybody's excited. And it's one of the best parts about running this business.
Guys, I got to pause here because I got a guy sitting in a call right now for one of our sales. So I don't know if we can edit this out or what happens. We got to kind of call this one. The people have heard me speaking. Apparently, you guys
are busy. You guys, I totally understand. So
that's good. This is a good place to wrap up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up here. I mean, as you can see, there's demand for it. So, yeah, we'll catch up again on the next episode. We'll probably dive into more of the artistic elements of the wall pen. And until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.
Right,
Marc and Mark.
Thanks, man.